Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this sutra that Lord Krishna gives us in the Bhagavad Gita, Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, that you have the freedom to perform the action, you do not have the freedom to determine the outcome of the action. What that means is what we discussed in the earlier class, where we do not have freedom. Then our approach is graceful acceptance. What is graceful acceptance is respecting it or welcoming it as the prasada or gift of God. When we have that attitude, then we'll find what is there to learn in that situation, what that situation has to offer. So if we have this attitude that every situation comes to offer something, and it may not appear pleasant on the surface, an unpleasant situation also would have something to offer if I maintain that balance of my mind, objective of the mind, meaning I do not identify, I do not brand myself, and thus I can maintain a balance or poise of my mind, then I would have the opportunity to understand what the situation means in my life. What does it mean? In what manner that even painful situation also, does it come to teach me something? Can it help me to grow in some way? And if we have the objective of mind, we may be able to discover some purpose even in what appears to be an unpleasant situation. Some purpose. And that's how even the unpleasant will help us to learn and grow, in Swamiji's language, learning and growing. Because usually it is seen that inner growth takes place more in the face of pain rather than on the face of pleasure. So Ishvara is quite that way considerate, and therefore he doesn't give all pain. There is enough pain, adequate amount of pain in the human life, and that's how human life is. But then, now and then he gives us a relief. He does give some pleasure also. So whenever a pleasure or happiness comes, understand that that is his grace to give me some relief, so I can be prepared for what is going to come. There's a little bit of refreshment, and so that I'm ready now to face the situation that can come later. In short, as far as our personal life is concerned, we need not dismiss the unpleasant or a pain as a punishment or as something that is of no use. It could be very useful also, and from that we can learn and grow, if that is our attitude. Let us now come back to the first part of that statement, Karmanyavadikaraste, you have the freedom in performing action. So that is where here also the free will was used, understand. The free will or choice was used in creating a distance, in not identifying, in being objective. Then we can assess and judge the situation properly and decide what our response should be. Therefore, ideally, our response to every situation should be from an objective standpoint, not from an impulsive behavior, but an objective standpoint. Now then, when I am ready to respond, Lord Krishna says, Karmanyavadikaraste, you have the freedom to choose your response. So how shall I use my freedom? Now, we are responding to situation again every moment. We are relating to people, relating to situation, relating to world, and what should be the criterion in my responding or relating to the world. Again, as we said, in keeping with the reality of myself. Intelligent living is to live in keeping with the reality. So what's the reality of myself? Not what I feel about myself. What is reality of myself? Usually we respond based on what we feel about ourselves. But rather, what is the reality of ourselves? That we should remind, this is where alertness is required. So to put this understanding also into practice requires alertness, reminding myself as to what is the reality of me. This morning also we saw how the reality about me is nothing but, and we have been discussing since last 2 days, the reality about me is that I am a whole or complete being, that inherently I am a loving, kind, good person. That is the reality about me. In a given frame of mind, that may not be the state of my mind. My mind may be hurt, it may be angry, it may be whatever. It is possible that those kind of impulses may arise in my mind, which impulses can be reduced to these two, raga and dvesha, meaning that raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion, would arise in my mind. It's possible that a situation may trigger these raga dveshas, which are the unconscious, which are supposedly there inside and they are triggered. Then it is my choice whether my response should be governed by the raga dveshas, governed by the attachment aversion, or should be governed by what is the true nature of myself. That choice I have. This question is often asked, is there really a free will? Do we really have free will? Do we really have freedom? Limited freedom, not a lot of freedom. In a country like United States, we have much more freedom than perhaps in a country like India. Because this is a very developed society and very wealthy and developed society. Therefore, they have created many choices and therefore lots of choices are available. You can choose what job to take sometimes. There are more than one offers, you can make a choice. Having had a job also, you can choose where to work from home, to work going to office, or partially here, partially there. All kinds of choices are here. All this stuff may not be available in India, and so it's true that it is that way a great advantage to be in a very developed society or developed country where more choices are there. What food you eat also, many choices are there. And I have it right in cottage, 6 different kinds of cereals, and so every morning then I have a choice, which one to choose. In my refrigerator, 3 kinds of milk may be there, 2%, 1%, and what is it, the skim milk, the white water, white-colored water, or the whole milk. There also there is choice, whether to add sugar or Splenda or this and what, choice. Well, okay, if these choices are there, where is lucky, but then it is not this choice that really what we are talking about. It's a luxury to have these choices. But the choice that we are talking about is this, whether to act out of my impulse of ragadvesha or to act out of my inherent goodness. Karmanyavadikaraste, you should, hey Arjuna, you should act on the basis of your inherent goodness, not on the basis of what your mind tells you, not what ragadveshas tell you, but what your inherent nature is. In other words, this is a value, that I respond on the basis of my inherent goodness, inherent kindness, inherent love, inherent compassion. This is the nature of myself. And then every action can become an occasion to invoke that goodness from me. If I am alert, and if this is my value, then every situation can become an occasion to invoke that goodness from me, which is what we want. That is how that pressure of the so-called unconscious or raga-dveshas, how can we subdue that pressure? By again and again invoking our goodness. In the language of Bhagavad Gita, we have both these kind of tendencies, the Daivi Sampat and the Asuri Sampat, the divine tendencies and the demoniac tendencies, both the tendencies are there, and we have a choice. That kind of choice we have. We may not have a choice in what to do. We may not have a choice in how to do, but we have a choice in terms of what attitude we can entertain while we are doing what we are doing. In our Puja Swamiji's words, the attitudes are very nicely described. Either I am a consumer or a contributor. Whether I am a giver or a grabber, the soul, these two attitudes are available to us. And my insecure mind, my raga-dveshas always provoke me or pressurize me to grab. Because an insecurity inside. The ignorance causes a sense of smallness, which causes a sense of insecurity. Thus we find that violation of values usually is on account of my insecurity. I know what is right, but I am not able to do that because I am too scared that if I do what is right, what will happen to me? I feel that my well-being is at risk. And therefore, to cover myself, I perhaps miscompromise or violate or sacrifice my honesty or my goodness because of that insecurity. So all violation of values comes from a sense of insecurity because the person knows what is right. Usually I know what is right. And when I do not do that, that is because there is some pressure. The pressure is one of insecurity. The thing is, are we going to justify the insecurity or are we going to conquer that insecurity? If I allow that insecurity to control me and violate the values, that means that insecurity will perpetuate. And I may keep on surrounding myself with all kinds of securities. And so this wealth and name and fame and power, all of these are means of security. I build these things around me to feel a sense of security. When I do that, as I said, it's wonderful to have those means. However, if I think that those means can make me secure, it can make me free from fear, then that is a superimposition. It's a dhyasa, a superimposition upon these things, because nothing can really give me security in the real sense. Thus, I have to tap my own self for my inner security or becoming free from fear. If this is understood, then I will not compromise the values, I will not compromise means for the sake of the end, and thus acting on the basis of the fundamental values. Again, as you know very well, these values are nothing but the expression of the fundamental order. It is that universal order which in different situations alone is translated as different values. Meaning that when I am truthful, it is the translation of that universal order in that particular situation. Non-violence, also as we discussed yesterday, how in Ishvara's creation there is no unnecessary violence, how there is honesty everywhere, how there is no pretentiousness. So this is how Ishvara's creation, because that's how Ishvara is, and his creation also is like that. And Therefore, living a life in harmony with that would become a value, would become intelligent living. Therefore, functioning on the basis of value is intelligent living. Not compromising the means for the sake of end is intelligent living. This may look hard. So it's hard to do. Because when I become honest, then we are always concerned about people taking advantage of us, people exploiting us, or I may be deprived of some material gain. Swami, then I won't get promotion, then I won't get this job, then I won't get this, and I won't get something else. In short, when there is a battle between some material gain and following this value, very often our greed, etc., they win, and that's how we wind up compromising values. But therefore, value for the values. Recognize, just as we discussed yesterday, how anger, etc., are very damaging to me, and therefore I want to become free from that. Similarly also, I should know that this non-violence or kindness is nourishing me, is nurturing me, and therefore I should in fact nurture those values. I must follow those values. Both are difficult. It's easy to act out of anger because it seems easy. It's easy to compromise the value, it looks easy. But in so doing, if you recognize that we are damaging ourselves, then there will be value. So value of the values. Recognizing that these values are valuable to me because these values are nothing but expression of my own self. As you said, there is no difference between the universal order and my own self. So when I am violating the universal order, I am in effect violating my own self, and when I violate my own self, there is going to be a conflict. There is going to be a sense of guilt, and thus I am hurting myself. Yekecha atmahano janaha, a life where people are hurting their own self. So whether I hurt myself or help myself. If I recognize that by violating a value, I hurt myself, by following a value, I help myself, then I have to assert this understanding in different situations and see that I follow a life of values. And a great value is yajna, because the universal order, as we said yesterday, is nothing but yajna, is nothing but self-offering. See, in our culture, this kind of teaching is not available to everybody. And therefore, everybody does not have the benefit of the teaching that they can interpret that in the life and live that. Even we did not have that benefit some years ago. Somebody comes here at the age of 50, somebody at 45, somebody at 35, somebody is lucky 25, whatever, but then, until then we did not have the benefit. However, the Vedic culture is so organized that if we follow the stipulations of the culture, then automatically we live intelligently. And so a life of dharma, a life of duty. That is why in the Vedic culture this concept of duty is highly emphasized. So word dharma can be translated as righteousness, or word dharma can be translated as duty, and thus discovering a sense of duty. What is this duty? Duty is an action that is performed out of a sense of gratitude. Whenever I do something out of a sense of gratitude, that action will be called duty. Not what we generally call, Swami, it's my duty to do this. I'm duty bound. This is my duty towards my family, duty towards my parents, which I do reluctantly or grudgingly. Because what? Swamiji is my prarabdha, my duty. What can I do? A certain action is not called duty. I may be serving my father and it may not be duty. I may serve my father with grudge or reluctance or inside anger. It's possible. In that case, that mere action of outwardly serving does not become dharma. Dharma is not only a particular action, of course, at the same time, what attitude goes behind that action. And that is the attitude derived out of a sense of gratitude. So Veda teaches that in the life of a human being, there should be gratitude. And as Vedas therefore tell us that every human being has these three kinds of debts, three kinds of runa, or the debt that we are indebted. If we look at the scheme of things, then we find that we are what we are on account of what the rest of the world does for me. Meaning that I am constantly a recipient of the favor of the world around me. And the Vedas divide this world of living beings in 5 categories. They talk of 3 runas, but you can talk of 5 runas actually, because these living beings are grouped into 5. One living beings are all the human beings on this earth. Other living beings are the gods. Third living beings are all the sages and teachers. Fourth living beings are the human being, the plants and the trees and whatever. And the fifth living beings are the other members of the parents and ancestors. So parents and ancestors, one group, sages and teachers, another group. The other members of society are third group. The gods, fourth group, and remaining living beings, which includes trees and, the question is what the trees and animals, plants, even skunks, everything is included. All is included, all living beings. That's how Vedas look upon the life. Because the way the creation is, there is interconnectedness and interdependence. Nobody is free. Nothing in the creation is independent. Everything in the whole creation is interconnected to everything else in some unseen connection, which we discussed yesterday. How my not getting a bus was related to somebody sitting in Delhi making some decision. How things are all, there are unseen threads which connect us all. And therefore, the way the scheme of things is, just as in my body also, how every limb is connected to the whole body and every other body. Therefore, in the body politic, when something happens somewhere, the whole body rushes to help that part. So that is how this universe is created, to be an interdependent, not only interconnected, but interdependent. And therefore, I am dependent upon the whole universe, and the universe also depends upon me. Now what is happening is that the universe is already doing its share without my even demanding. The rest of the universe is already doing its share. My parents gave me birth, and they raised me. They nurtured me, nourished me, educated me, and in India they will get me married. Up to that point they will, until the grandchild. So it depends on your sense of duty, but this is the sense of duty in India, that the parents feel that they should get their children married also. Not only that, they will inquire what's further, there must be next generation also. Prajacha swadhyaya pravachanaja, prajatischa swadhyaya pravachanaja. Upanishad says that not only the parents should get their children married, but make sure that there is a continuity of the chain, and therefore the children also should have the next generation. Then of course the grandparents have done their job. Then these fellows will do their grandchildren and so forth. This is how, that's why in India you find, the parents always feel we should, why Swamiji, why does my mother and father think that my marriage is their responsibility? Children here don't understand that. But the Indian parents coming from Indian background have this kind of culture that they feel responsible and whatever. But anyway, so it depends on our sense of responsibility or duty. So this is how, this is one. My teachers and the sages also taught me, and all the knowledge that I have is due to them. I am grateful to them. I'm grateful to my parents and ancestors because my parents are what they are because of their parents. Therefore, I'm grateful to my parents and ancestors. You see, a lot of things come to us from ancestors. There are ancestral rituals, ancestral way of, code of conduct, and so all of this is also coming down to us. So we are grateful to them, to our teachers and sages who gave us the knowledge, who taught us. We are indebted to them. All the gods, we discussed yesterday how the Agni, the fire god, is the presiding deity of the organ of speech, how sun god is the presiding deity of the organ of seeing, and thus for all the various functions performed at the level of organs of perception and organs of action. All of these take place because of the grace of the respective presiding deity. And therefore, without our asking, they're already doing their job. As we pointed out yesterday, sun is doing the great karma yogi. Sitting there looks like he's not, but sitting there is doing a lot of work. Constantly creating clouds and constantly raining and supplying. And moon also is doing a lot of work. Everybody is doing their work. And we are taking advantage of it. In fact, we are taking advantage of everything. People always are concerned about somebody taking their advantage, but we don't realize how much advantage we are taking. One Mahatma points out, look, this light that you are getting, are you getting free? You will have to pay the utility bill. But the light out there, coming from the big bulb, any taxes to be paid? Does the sun demand any taxes? The water you get in your tap, there is a meter, you have to pay for that. But the water that comes from the rain, any taxes you have to pay? You're walking on the earth, does it demand any charges? You're occupying space. That shows when Lord Krishna says, I'm the father of the universe, I'm the mother of the universe, I'm the grandfather. Father protects and mother nourishes. He does both. And the parents don't charge their children. When we are growing up in our home, our father did not charge us, for electricity that we are using and water that we are using. Did they? Did you have to pay? Did they keep an account? Parents don't do that. And so, similarly, Ishvara does not keep an account of how much light I have used, how much air I breathed, how much space I occupied, how much I trampled upon the earth. Nobody keeps an account because He is our father and mother. And therefore, but we should know. Children should know. Just because parents do not keep an account, that doesn't mean that the children should not have a sense of gratitude for all that has been done to them. Here the child grows, 18 or 21, that says independent. As though the parent never existed in his life. There has nothing to do with them. Sometimes when we hear this kind of story, it's very shocking. But whatever, we need not go into that kind of, but the idea is that all I'm saying is how we are enjoying the benefits, that's all. But then we must make a note of this, and as I said, then there must be a sense of gratitude for all the benefits that we are receiving. Then other members of society also do a lot of things for us. The laundryman comes and picks up all the laundry, washes them and then irons them and brings them back. But Swami, I am paying. You are paying, that is all, but you do it, We won't be able to do that. The postman does his job, the milkman does his job, the storekeeper does his job, the farmer does his job, merchant does his job. All these fellows, if they did not do their job, we could not live. Is it not so? And therefore, they have, we are taking advantage of them also. And how about plants and trees? We are taking advantage of them also. They give us oxygen and take away our carbon dioxide. Not only that, apart from oxygen, they give us the fruits and they give us the flowers and they give us the leaves and they give us the shade and all kinds of things they give us without making any demand. You must have heard the story of this king. This actually happened. A king, this is in India, this king is going on his elephant with his retinue. All of a sudden, a stone came and hit the king on his head. and the blood started flowing. He did not faint, but he was much hurt. And all the people who were attending to him, immediately they attended to king, and then they were very angry. Who threw this stone here? So people ran around and caught hold of a boy, a 10-year-old boy. Apparently, he had thrown a stone which hit the king. So boy was brought before the king. He says, "What? Did you throw the stone?" He was shivering, with fear. He says, I threw the stone. "Why did you do that? Why did you hit the king?" "I did not hit the king." "Then what were you doing?" "I was just throwing stone at the tree." "For what?" "For getting the fruit." The king thought, look at this tree. Even though this boy throws stone at it, in return it gives fruit. A tree does that. What should a king do in return? He says, let him go. Give him something and let him go. Taking advantage of the trees, throwing stones at them, but still getting fruits. And so, how all along just take advantage. It's a privilege, do that. After all, when we are growing, it is our privilege to take advantage, nothing wrong in it. Children are consumers when they are going, but a time should come when they should become contributors. They should always remain contributors. These children go out, even they go to universities, and the parents give them the credit card. That fellow goes, this mother or father, these fellows are saving money and they eat at home, and this fellow goes to restaurants and goes, Father is using a 10-year-old car, this fellow wants a new sports car. No consideration at all, no sensitivity at all. But anyway, because these are parents are Indian, children are American, so naturally it's going to make a difference, but still. There must be a time must come when a consumer, it is quite all right that we are consumers as we are growing. A time must come when we should become contributors. In India also this problem is coming. Here, of course, when people get old, they have to go to nursing homes, because who will take care of them? Children are very busy with their own life and they don't have any space to take care of these parents and whatever. So, but in India also the situation is arising, unfortunately, where more and more what they call old age homes are coming up. Many parents are not welcome at home. The son gets married, the daughter-in-law comes, and she wants her own space, and sometimes, I shouldn't say only daughter-in-law, anything, whatever. Sometimes the parents are not welcome, and they have to go to old age homes. But then children complain, Look at my father, he keeps on talking and talking, doesn't stop, Swamiji. He forgets to take his medicine. All kinds of complaints are there. He keeps on asking again and again for food, and he wants this and he wants that, all kinds of things. So this is justification of sending the parents to old age home. We just to remind them, when you were growing up, how many times you forgot your medicine? How many times your mother had to remind you and give you the medicine? And give me candy, how many things you were asking all the time when you were growing up? When they are doing it, then you are complaining, but you are doing the same thing? That we conveniently forget. That our behavior, that Swamiji, they don't sleep at night, these old people. You did not sleep at night when you were small and they had to keep awake. All of this we conveniently forget, that what we were when we were consumers, now there is time that we must become contributors, and we have to grow up and take the responsibility. Well, anyway, similarly also, we have to grow up in our life and take the responsibility of becoming contributors. We have been consumers all along, and we will remain consumers also, because nobody is independent. Everybody is dependent upon the rest of the world. But then, there must be a recognition of this reality, that we are the consumers, we are the recipients of all these benefits which are given to us freely. And nobody gave any bills, nobody sent any bills so far. Everybody did what they did. And now we must become, therefore, Pujya Swamiji says, we should become contributors. So therefore, not just following value. It's not enough that I am honest and I am truthful, that of course I should be. But then I should go a step further. That's not enough. That I am honestly consuming. It's good that I am honestly consuming. But then I should grow further. And not just an honest consumer, should become an honest contributor. So that's a further value. That's called Karma Yoga. This is Karma Yoga. What's Karma Yoga? When an action is performed in the spirit of contribution. Yajñārthāt karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangas samachara. Lord Krishna says that an action performed in the spirit other than the spirit of contribution is a binding action. Meaning that when I perform an action as a consumer, then I perpetuate the consumer. Because the consumer can never be satiated. More I try to satisfy that consumer, more demanding he becomes, because nobody can fulfill his consumption desire. His desire is for limitlessness and he wants to fulfill it through all the limited means. It will never happen. Meaning that I will perpetuate a consumer. I'll die a consumer. I'll be born as a consumer also. Because my destiny is determined by the way I live my life here. It's my choice whether to perpetuate the beggar in me or whether to perpetuate the contributor in me or to encourage the contributor. It's my choice. So this is a choice we are talking about. When we say free will or freedom of choice, this choice we are talking about. So these are the fundamental choices. Whether we eat orange and apple, that's okay. That's all preference. That choice is, that's a different kind of a choice. That's not the free will we are talking about. This is a free will. And that opportunity comes to us every step. What is meant by action? Action is performed at the level of body, at the level of speech, at the level of mind. And therefore, even though outwardly we may not be appearing to do anything, we may not even be talking, we may be silent, but in the mind, I am thinking, I am deliberating. In the mind, I am entertaining some attitude all the time. Whether I entertain the attitude of a giver or a grabber. Usually, my tendency is to grab. In every situation, when I meet anybody, or in any situation I am, my mind thinks, how can I grab the most? How can I take the most advantage of the person with whom I am talking, person with whom I am relating, whatever. How to get the most advantage? How to take advantage? This is how my mind works. I may be very smart, very clever, smiling, but in all of this behavior, behind that is what? Behind that is the intention of how to grab, how to take advantage, how to satisfy my ego. Therefore, I am a devotee. We are all born bhaktas, devotees. But right now, I am a devotee of my ego because I am totally dedicated to my ego and satisfying my ego. What all I do is for gratification of my ego or my senses. And I think that I am very smart when I am able to do this and manipulate people and manipulate the world in order to satisfy my senses or gratify my ego, and those people are considered very smart and successful. They may be world smart but spiritually unintelligent, inasmuch as that will only perpetuate the need for gratification, because the gratifying ego is like pouring butter into fire. It will never find gratification. It only becomes more and more demanding. So this we should understand. And so whenever there is an action we perform, either I perform as an offering to my ego or I perform it as an offering to Ishvara. Ishvara means what? Just entertaining this spirit of yajna or spirit of contribution, that's all. That is Ishvara. Our Ishvara, as I said, is everywhere. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tadam. The one who is the origin or source of all the activities. That is important. That he is the source of all the activities. I cannot take also the credit for all the activities I perform. That's another problem. The reason why I always want to be rewarded for what I do is because I think that what I am doing is because of me. That's not so. When we really think about it, then what really belongs to me? This is mine, but what is mine? In fact, I cannot lay claim to this body because, as Swamiji says, that is given. This body is a gift from my parents. In the mind and sense organs, intellect, all of these are given to us. We have not created them, we have not authored them. But Swamiji, I work very hard in my life. I went to school, I went to college, I got these degrees, I got the skills. That's okay. But the capacity to get that also is given. But Swamiji, I use the capacity, this fellow is not using, but at least inspiration or motivation or use is given to you. The mind is given, the capacity is given, the motivation also is given. Otherwise, why do you come here on this, on this holiday? Why are you not at the beach? There are millions of people at the beach, I guess, right now. Why are you here? Because of the motivation. Somebody gave you that motivation. You, if you want, you can take the credit. Or if you are humble, then you realize that it is the grace of Ishvara that we have this motivation, that we are here. An intelligent person is always an humble person. Only an unintelligent person is an arrogant or a proud person because he does not know or understand the realities of life. But when you look at the realities, I'll be very humble. Yoginaha karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. Lord Krishna says that the yogis perform actions at the level of body, level of senses, level of mind, at level of intellect, as everybody else does. Except that while performing action, they do not claim ownership to Adis Upadhi. If I claim ownership to my mind, body, and my mind, and my knowledge, and my skills, then naturally the outcome of that, I'll be the owner of that. I'll claim the ownership of what is mine. Because if I invest my money, then what dividend comes belongs to me. Similarly, it is my body and my mind and my intellect and my skills which I am investing, and this is a reward that I must have. Then I become the owner of the reward. But when I realize that all this is given to me, I am not the owner. I am merely a trustee. I am not the owner. This is given to me for good use. Ishvara thought that let me give gift to this fellow so that he will use it well. He goes into my creation and he will not mischief, he will do something good to help the scheme of things. Ideally speaking, therefore, we are not owner of anything. We are merely the manager or trustee of the thing. Meaning that whatever is produced at the level of this body and the mind, that outcome does not belong to me. It belongs to the one who is the owner of this. As a manager, I can take my remuneration. That you can do. Ishvara will allow that. Some remuneration you can take. Yagna shishta shanasantah muchyante sarvakilvishaihi. Lord Krishna says that having performed all the yajnas, this is a way of describing, having performed all the yajnas, meaning having given the share to those whom it belongs. As I said, these 5 kinds of beings contribute in my life, and therefore they are all shareholders, and therefore giving share to the devatas, to the rishis, to the parents and ancestors, to the trees and plants and birds and animals, and to other members of society, in keeping with their share in my life, and then whatever remains, I can partake of that. That's called yajna shishta. Yajna shishta means having performed the yajna, whatever remains, you partake, you enjoy that. I grab the whole thing. Tairattan apradayabhyah yo bhunkte steneva sah. Lord Krishna says, one who grabs the whole thing is a thief because he has not given the fair share to those who it belongs to. Meaning that in all that we acquire or all that we earn, all these things have share, the environment is a share. Meaning that the needy beings of society have share, the nature in terms of plant and environment has share, or the natural forces have share. If we do not do anything, at least we do not pollute these things. We should not pollute the nature, not pollute the sound, not pollute the space, not at least make it dirty, or we can contribute to clean these things, Yeah, when we go to Rishikesh and perform Ganga Puja, then we pour milk. What are you doing, Swami? You are throwing away milk into river? Or when you perform a homa and we are putting ghee into fire, what is this? You are burning this ghee? You could use it for some other purpose. When you keep on pouring milk in your stomach, it's all going to waste anyway. What are you doing? We are doing this as a contribution to purify the environment. So this awareness should be there in our life, that we are a part of the whole, that there is interdependence, interconnection, and just as I am the receiver, it becomes my duty also to give back. This is the spirit of yajna, or the spirit of duty, and therefore in the Vedic society these duties were all defined. So when people perform their duties, automatically they were performing yajna, they were making their offerings, and so they were living a life intelligently, automatically. Also, in every relationship, invoke the goodness that is in me. Meaning that my spirit of always being kind or loving or giving, let that be the attitude in every relationship, whether it is with your family, with your friends, with anybody. Thus, remind yourself, invoke the goodness in me. So let my goodness express itself through whatever actions I perform, whatever vyavahara I do, whatever I do, let it be the expression of my goodness. That's difficult, because that evil thing which is in me also wants to control me. I must necessarily subdue those impulses and I must assert my goodness. In that case, in course of time, the unintelligence, the built-in unintelligence becomes slowly dropped off, given up, and my life becomes more and more intelligent until it becomes totally intelligent. This is also what Vedanta says, the process of inner purification or antahakara shuddhi. My mind becomes sattvic. Sattvic becomes transparent, becomes pure, and then my values change. So far, my value was perhaps to gratify myself. Now the value changes. I become a jignasu. I become, in my mind now, there is desire for knowledge. This happens. Ato jignasu rartharthi jnani cha bhartarshava. I start in the beginning as one who wants always to be protected. Then I become one who is asking for my personal reward. Then I become one who is a desire of knowledge. So thus, when in our mind the desires slowly converge into the desire for knowledge, then we have reached what we call an emotional maturity. We have become intelligent in a good large sense. The final stage of intelligence is to do what is required to fulfill the desire for knowledge. So next stage of intelligent living will be then living a life of pursuit of knowledge. The final level of intelligence will be to gain that knowledge and gain abidance in that knowledge. Which is okay, what I'm saying is that these are the ultimate stage. So living intelligently does not merely stop in living our worldly life, but this worldly life is a beautiful life in as much as this is where there is all the opportunity to grow, inner purification, emotional maturity. From immature people, we become mature or intelligent people. Then automatically next stages will come. There will be value for knowledge, it will arise. Then if necessary the teacher will come, the teaching will happen. That's also part of the scheme of things that will take place, leading me ultimately to the destination. We said that the destination behind all destinations is moksha. Moksha or liberation is not something to be acquired, it is an obtaining fact that already liberation or freedom is my nature. It's a matter of owning up myself. So this whole process is owning up myself. The ultimate owning is when I gain the knowledge of myself and I gain an abidance in myself. Then is the most intelligent person. Atmaneva atmana tushtaha. One who is satisfied with himself by himself. Then he becomes totally a contributor. Rajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. When all the demands from him have dropped off, because there is no demand left in him now. Therefore, all desires, demands, expectations have all dropped off. Therefore, his life is totally a life of contribution. In short, the extent to which our life we become more non-demanding, the extent to which we become more contributing, to that extent our life becomes more intelligent. And the culmination of that is that the person becomes totally free from demand. As he discovers his wholeness, the extent to which we discover, the demands automatically drop. And when he discovers the wholeness is nature, no demand is left. Like in Ishvara there is no demand, the wise person also is like Ishvara in that sense. In that sense there is identity. What's the identity of this Jiva and Ishvara? That Ishvara is non-demanding, then wise person also is non-demanding. Ishvara is all giving, wise person also is all giving. In that sense there is an identity, meaning that they are equal in that sense. Not that the wise person is equal to Ishvara, that he can create this world and stuff like that, or he can perform miracles. If that is so, that's a luxury, but that's not a necessity. But this is necessity. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. When all the desires or demands arising in the mind have automatically dropped off. Etad buddhva buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. Gaining which knowledge, he Bharata, he Arjuna, one becomes buddhiman, intelligence in the real sense of the word. So that is the goal of intelligent living. Live then totally in harmony with our own self, in harmony with the world. So wise person lives in harmony. Therefore he is a spontaneous person. He spontaneously does what is right. An aspirant seeker is the one who deliberately does what is right. A wise person is the one who spontaneously does what is right. But doing what is right, and what is right is living in accordance with the realities, is doing what is right, is the way of intelligent living, which culminates into achieving what we are seeking, namely the freedom or the wholeness. So with that, we'll conclude our talks on this intelligent living. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।